I'd like to talk about public service pensions. In all provinces in Canada except Saskatchewan, the governments are on a defined contribution program. A defined benefit program. Usually it's employees are entitled to 2% of their per year. So if they work 35 years, they'll get 70% of their best 5 years, which are normally at the end of their career. And at the federal level, that amount is indexed for their lifetime. Other provinces, it can be a varying amount. Usually it's indexed in some way. The only exception, and so that means that there's an unfunded liability for each province and the federal government. So when they talk about the provincial debt, that unfunded liability is not included in the provincial debt, and it should be. It's misleading to think that the only amount of money outstanding is the amount that's been borrowed from the banks. That's borrowings for previous expenditures. But if there's a commitment to spend money in the future for service that was provided today, then really there's no difference. And so the unfunded liability for pensions should be included in the debt outstanding for each province. And so it is misleading. In BC, for example, the reported amount of debt per capita is about $8,000. And at the federal level, the per capita debt is about $14,000. But that, as I say, is misleading because it does not include the unfunded liability for the civil service pensions. The exception to that is Saskatchewan. About 35 or 40 years ago, Wes Robbins was the Minister of Finance, and it was a pet priority for him to switch Saskatchewan from the same program that everybody else had to a defined contribution plan. So the basis of the program is this, that each year the province will contribute 5% of the person's salary to a fund, and the individual will make an equal contribution. So a total of 10% of the individual's salary goes into a retirement account, and that will, like a mutual fund, will grow over time, and whatever that amounts to at the time that the individual retires, then that will then be his or her retirement pension. And so that was introduced about 35 years ago, and so the people who were starting with the province of Saskatchewan back at that time will now be about ready to retire. And so they will all be getting their pension based on the savings that they've accumulated over their lifetime. So the province of Saskatchewan is the only province that doesn't have a significant unfunded liability for pensions. There still is a bit, because some of the employees who started before the new program came into effect are still alive and are still benefiting from pensions that are based on the old system. And so they still have a bit of an unfunded liability for those. But as the people age and as more and more of the older civil servants die, that will become less and less. So I think that is something that other provinces should consider. The problem with it is that it doubles up on the pension payments, because they have to pay for the pensions of the people who retired 25 or 30 years ago, plus they have to now start paying for the pensions of the people who are working today. And so it is a burden on the provinces or the federal government that introduces that program today. But Saskatchewan has worked its way through that. They started it 35 years ago. They've now got it behind them, and they're in a much, much better position. And I don't think there's enough discussion or understanding of that distinction between what the situation is in Saskatchewan with what it is in other provinces and at the federal level. And I think that needs more coverage.